it is such a thrill and an honor for me to be serving as the CEO of National Summer Learning Association. And I just want to thank all of you for showing up. We've said this in a few other places already, but it was not an easy decision for many folks to come in person. It wasn't a very easy decision for us to hold the conference in person, but we thought the work and the moment demanded it. The work is too important, young people's lives, too important. We thought we'd benefit. All of us would benefit by being together, and I think we are. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank our staff and our board. If you don't mind standing up and let us recognize you, NSLA staff and board. And our field consultants, too, who make our work possible. Thank you to all of you. Hopefully you've seen, we're trying to recognize all our folks, but a conference like this doesn't just happen, and our work doesn't just happen. We have so many sponsors, and we have summer learning champions, our nonprofit government partners. We have our exhibitors. It's all in the back of your program book, but if you are a sponsor or a summer learning champion, can you please stand up and let us thank you as well? Thank you. It's funny, I can't thank people without actually, my wife, Lauren, I have a point of personal privilege here. I'm gonna thank people. She is working today. We have 2 kids, she's with them, but I think she might be watching somewhere on Facebook. So let me just say thank you to her who makes everything I do possible, makes my life more fun and better and healthier, and I'd say more sanitary. So thank you, Lauren. It's a good just rule of thumb. You should all just thank your spouses first thing you do in the morning. Just good thing. Now, you just learned a little bit about me. I've learned a lot about all of you. I'm trying to get this thing to, all right, there we go. Through Zoom. A lot of us have seen each other in Zoom. I didn't know some of you were so tall. I didn't know some of you were so short. But listen, we are who we are. But we're in those little boxes. We look like something, and it's much better to see all of you here. I'll just say, it's so funny. I didn't know so many of you had cute pets that aggressively like to jump on you during Zoom calls. It was great to see so many of them. It was a lot of you, including myself, have very self-confident and assertive children who don't care when you're on a Zoom call and think maybe all of us are their housekeeping and room service. My son, who's 10, 11, he'd be like, "Dad, water! Dad, bagel!" I'm like, what is going on around this? And this is like how he was learning, by the way, at school. He's like sitting in a hammock in his room. I don't know. It was... And that was interesting. It's also nice to see all of you with clothes, nice clothes on top and on the bottom. You thought no one was watching, but you'd be like, "Oh, I have to go to the bathroom," and they're like the sweatpants. It's fine. We want everyone to be comfortable. And so, I'll tell you a funny story. I shared this with my librarian friends, but hopefully all of you did enjoy who you went through quarantine with, and still like them. I'm very fortunate. I've already professed my love to my wife. I have 2 children, Miles and Gabrielle. One's 11, one's 8. And Gabrielle, one of the things we did was during COVID, we got a COVID puppy. A lot of folks in our neighborhood got one. Our dog is named Doobie. He also is very assertive and demanding in his own way. And we created a nice little routine where we would get the newspaper, and every morning we'd walk around the neighborhood, and we'd see our neighbors, and my daughter and I, we would read the headlines together, and we'd talk about the news, and then we used the plastic bag from the newspaper to pick up the poop for the dog. We were trying to multitask. And we got into this routine, and then when school started up again, I started driving her to school a few days a week, and I would make her in the back read me the headlines, which, if you remember usually she was reading about politicians acting inappropriately towards their staff. And I was like, skip that one. And then the next line, I was like, skip that article, turn to the sports section, come on. But we were practicing literacy skills. And then it was kind of funny because we get to know our neighbors really well. We were with them all the time, and one of them, their great-grandmother, passed away. We were invited onto a memorial Zoom call, memorial service, and they start talking about how great-grandma Alice lived to 100, and she had a great life, and every day the first thing she would do is read the New York Times cover to cover until her very last day. And my daughter walks by the Zoom call, punches me in the shoulder and says, "Hey, if that lady likes the New York Times so much, why don't you drive her to school and make her read you the headlines?" And I was like, that's inappropriate, but funny and witty, and thank God for the mute button. So, some silver linings of COVID for all of us. I would just like to say, before you're going to hear a lot, we have a great panel all day long, and tomorrow you're going to hear a lot about the importance of policy and data and funding and all these best practices and research and everything we're all trying to do for kids. But if I can ask all of you to just, if you have a pen, to get it out and to just quickly, in your mind, take 10 seconds and write down the name of a young person who is affected by a program you support. Either you're running a program, or somebody you're supporting another program, or someone in your life who you want to benefit from a program. Because what I really want us to do is ground ourselves in the fact that everything we're doing here, all the lights, all the staging, all this is really to help young people. And if you could just hold on to that person in your mind as you go through today and go through tomorrow, you'll just remember what this is all about. So if everyone just want to write that down, think about that name, hold on to that name. Now, we are really fortunate. We have this wide array of partners here. And, sometimes this work feels lonely. One of the goals of a conference and why it's important to come in person is so you don't feel lonely. If you look around this room, we're going to have more than 500 people here who are on your team. Whether you knew them or not, whether they come to your Zoom staff calls or not, we are all on each other's team, and you have a lot of help here. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but just so you know who we have in this room. We have leaders from schools. We have leaders from school districts. We have leaders from state education agencies. We have leaders from the U.S. Department of Education. We have leaders from youth-serving government agencies, like the Parks and Rec Centers, and like libraries, like public housing authorities, like summer youth employment programs. We have a huge number of leaders from nonprofit organizations, for direct service programs, intermediaries, curriculum providers, staff trainers. We have folks from corporate America who are really into summer youth employment, which is a form of summer learning, as we heard last night, especially for older youth. And we have folks from the camp world and nature-based programs and Outward Bound, and folks who are working with young people on college campuses, overnight programs. This is the broad tent. And in the world of education, where all these intersections are coming, we like to think at NSLA that we're one of the sweet spots in the Venn diagram where all these worlds connect. And you're sitting here. And many of you know each other. Many of you have been fighting the good fight for a long time. But you know that this is a critical moment for our kids and our field and our country. And what do we know about COVID? We know that more than 700,000 people have died in the last 2 years from this pandemic. We know that millions more people have gotten very sick, and that's affected their lives. We know that millions of people lost their jobs shut down, entire industries shut down, unemployment. We know that there were, and then we heard this from stats from CCSSO, our partners, that more than 40,000 parents passed away, and that was 1.5 million children lost caregivers who took care of them directly. And so we know that this was hard for everyone, but harder for some. Now, in that moment of turmoil and upheaval and anguish and a lot of challenges, we could take what we've done is something we've actually done in the past. We've turned to each other. In a lot of time of uncertainty, we've doubled down on community. We've doubled down on supporting one another. And if you read, and this is why I brought it with me, a famous old book, Bowling Alone by Harvard professor Robert Putnam, just came out decades ago, but he talks about a time almost 100 years ago exactly, in the turn in the 20th century, between 1900 and 1920, when, by the way, they had a pandemic, there was a world war, there was economic transition and upheaval, so much uncertainty, and most of the most well-known, still to this day, largest operating national community organizations, the NAACP, the United Way, Boys and Girls Club of America, Kiwanis Club, Lions Club, all these organizations were created in America in a 20-year span. And when people were facing challenges and facing uncertainty, they doubled down on building community. So here we are in 2021. We're facing challenges, uncertainty, upheaval. We are doubling down on community. We're coming back. So you are all doubling down. You're serving your kids. You're serving your staff. You're serving their families. You're serving communities. Let me tell you how we serve you. So at NSLA, to keep track for myself, I call it our 5 Ps. We heard about 5 Ps yesterday, but I'll just go quickly through them. First is program quality. Everybody wants to run a good program, but they're not all built the same. And we want to make sure that every young person, not just in a program, but they're in a great program. And many of you run great programs, and that's why you're going to hear from award winners later. We try and lift that up. We have quality standards. We do staff training. The best thing I could do for every one of you is hire Broderick Clark as our new Vice President of Programs and System Quality. But he doesn't work for me. He works for all of you. And this guy, and I'm just going to boast about him, he's trained in every youth development tool there ever was. If you ran one and you had to be certified, Broderick's certified in all of them. And he knows what works. And so if you need help, you could call our office. I'm happy to help you. But Broderick is really, and his team are ready to help you. And he's a resource and a gift for all of us. That's one of the ways we're going to invest in all of you. We also invest in research. Hopefully you saw the executive summary of a new research survey study that we did in partnership with Harvard University and Gil Noam. From his team, you're going to hear from him momentarily, but looking at 2,000 parents, what did they have to say about what worked last summer or didn't? That was in your registration packets. You'll hear more about that. So on top of program quality, we're investing in partnerships. One of the reasons you come to a conference is so you can make partnerships, build partnerships, learn from one another. If you saw yesterday what we called our pre-conference day, we had on the second floor all these pre-conference learning communities happening. We had public housing authorities over here. We had school districts over here. We had libraries over here. We had summer youth employment over here. It's going to grow. But one of the things we want to do is connect you to your peers. And that's not just yesterday. That's going to be quarterly all year round for years to come. And then to come in person, and then to have you all intersect. So that's like when I was saying, the sweet spot of the Venn diagram. Policy is our third P. You saw the fact that summer learning was written into federal legislation of emergency funding. That doesn't just happen. That takes all of us. That's not just NSLA, but that's all of us working hard, doing our best, creating a track record and a reputation that in a moment of crisis, when leaders say, what do we do to help kids respond and catch up? They could say summer learning is one of the proven strategies. And so we had to work with federal leaders. Now we're working with Council of Chief State School Officers, a mouthful, CCSSO, but they represent all state education agencies, and we're working closely with them to educate state policymakers who are getting this funding, and some of them coming up with strategies statewide, and then obviously working at the local level, and all of you are doing that. Fourth P, public awareness. And I think we're in more than almost 2,000 articles this past year. When we talk about media really cared about this issue, they really cared. And they were calling, and shout out to Laura Johnson on our team and everyone else who was trying to respond to every question, every request there ever was. Also, it's not enough just to run a good program. People need to know the program exists, and then they need to sign up. And that's why we worked with our friends from Clear Channel and iHeartRadio and InPlay, and we created something called discoversummer.org, and we had national partners that all got involved, and for the first time, put all their programs into a searchable database that if you're a parent, you could say, what's the program, what's the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, summer camp, library, summer program, all near me? We could do better. This is our first time. We want all of you to sign up. We're going to grow this resource, and then that's when we promoted it. So again, imagine you do all this work to create programs, and then parents don't know about it, and they don't sign up. That's unacceptable. So we're going to do more around that. And then the last P here is about all of you. P stands for people. None of this happens if it's not for you. We are in the people business. We are in the leadership business, so we are doubling down on you. That's why we have this conference. And a lot of people were questioning that. But we have to get with our people. We've created new leadership programs. You heard Elaine yesterday. We're going to be doing even larger congressional and Washington, D.C. policy summer internship program, because there's no more unequal form of education than the unpaid internship. And we're going to advocate for paid internships so every kid in America could get those opportunities to learn new skills and build up their resume and get mentors that'll set them up. We're also creating an innovation fellowship for leaders of color. We did that this year. We're going to grow that. And we are going to keep doing more for our CEO leaders and executive leaders. So this is about people. This is what we do. This is what NSLA is up to. Now, I'll just share what's next. So this is what's coming up. Where do we go from here? It's really important that we move from being a rigid programs to reimagining our programs. We all have great program models. We all have a lot of data, and we have a lot of pride in how they work. But in a moment of crisis, it might force us to reimagine what's possible. How do we stretch ourselves? Act with some humility and think about, hey, maybe there are things we do that we don't do that so well. And maybe there's something another program does. And so you might be a great health and fitness program, but can you add in academics? You might be a great academic program, but we know kids need health and fitness, and we know they all need social and emotional learning. And so getting away from these false choice, binary debates of, is it academics versus SEL? It's all of it. We know that. Do the kids need academics? Do they need health and fitness? They need all of it. But not all of us could do and provide everything by ourselves, which is why we need a conference, which is why we partner, which is why we need all of you to provide all the kids everything they need. The whole child, whole day, whole year. You all know this. So we need to reimagine what's possible, stretch ourselves. The other thing that we saw during COVID that we're going to keep pushing on is to move from silos to systematic strategy, and to go from feeling competitive with one another to being as coordinated and collaborative as possible. Because we know we don't want to have a scarcity mindset that says there's only a few bucks and if you get them, then I don't get them. That's not what we're here for. We're here to focus on young people, and if you can all team up, and if we could help you team up, we could do so much more. There's almost 25, 27 million young people who qualify for free and reduced lunch across the country, kindergarten through 12th grade. Our vision is that every single one of them has access to participate and can afford to participate in a high-quality summer learning experience every summer of their lives. We think that's a very doable project. We think that's something we can accomplish together. And the last here is about understanding that 5-year plans don't really work in a moment of crisis. It's great to have a 5-year plan. Or Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I would just have to say here, there's a fierce urgency of now. Martin Luther King used to talk about this. Barack Obama used to talk about it. We are feeling this. This $30 billion that's available to all of us to do more to help kids catch up and propel forward, there is a time limit on that money. And I know some people say, well, what's going to happen when the money's not here? Well, that's a debate we'll cross, but let me tell you this. I'll tell you one way to certainly not get it is not to focus on the here and now and do a great job, as great a job as we can for all kids. Because if we take care of business and take care of the families and communities and grow our programs and stretch, you might have a certain number of kids in your program. Can you add more? Can you make your program better and add more next year and 2 years from now? Because then we'll have a track record, we'll have results, and then when they say, hey, it's time to decide whether or not this field gets their money again or not, we'll have what to say, and we will get that. And so when I asked you to think about a story of a student, I'm going to tell you a quick story of a student. There's a student that I got to meet this summer, a woman who moved to America with her father after her mother passed away, and she came in 4th grade to America for a better life, her father and her, no siblings. She moved to America, she moved to New Jersey, her father got a job. She got involved with one of our award-winning summer programs. It really helped her. It helped her in school. It helped her apply to college. She got a full ride to college. And then there was a chance for her, because she was participating in that program, to get one of our summer internship programs. And that's going to lead to career opportunities. And during COVID, right before she started, her father had a job at the airport. And he got sick. And he passed away. And it was a huge tragedy, really horrible for everyone. And the staff and the relationships she built through her summer learning program, they've reached out to her, they took care of her, and now she's been adopted by those staff from that family, a family that she met through her summer learning program. She's going to be okay. We love her. She knows who loves her. She's going to take everything she's got, and she's going to honor her parents' legacy. But these are the relationships that we build. These are the young people behind the stats, behind the money, behind the data, and all of us are in a position to impact people's lives. And so going back to my daughter, Gabrielle, one of the things we also like to do is something called premonice. It's kind of when you reminisce about, so you have a premonition, but you're reminiscing about something in the future. So it's like, wouldn't it be cool 20 years from now when? And here's what I'm premising with all of you. I do not want to show up here in 2030 and have us look back on 2021 when there was $30 billion to help kids and improve education and reimagine and to move from being rigid to super creative, to go from silos to systems. And we had the chance to go from 5-year plans to the fierce urgency of now. And I don't want to look back on this time as the glory days. I want those glory days to continue. And I want us to have said, when COVID happened, when the chips were down, we doubled down on each other, we invested in each other, we invested in community, we invested in program quality, all these things at NSLA to make sure that kids and families and communities built back better.